Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Your Voice Chronicles. Now, this is a space where ordinary voices share extraordinary stories. Stories of growth, resilience, leadership, purpose, and becoming. I'm your host, Brian Mwaka, and today I'll be sharing my story. So whether you're driving, working out, relaxing, or simply taking a moment to yourself, I appreciate you being here. Now let's get into it. When I think back to January 24th of 2020, I can still picture myself landing at Toronto Pearson International Airport with a suitcase, dreams, and uncertainty. I had just arrived in Canada from Uganda. Like many immigrants, I carried hope for opportunity, hope for growth, hope for a better future. But what people don't always see is what happens after the plane has arrived, after the excitement, after the welcome to Canada messages fade. I took a connecting flight to Edmonton, believing life could slow down and come all together. Instead, I stepped into one of the hardest and darkest seasons of my life. This was the start of my journey in homelessness. There were days I did not know where I would sleep. I couch surfed from place to place with friends, relying on the kindness of strangers who opened up their homes to me, and sometimes it was tough and I didn't really have an option. But honestly, this season humbled me. And because when you leave everything familiar behind you, you quickly realize how vulnerable life is. And starting over can be tough, very, very, very tough. Sometimes you go from having certainty and having all that you need to just having just yourself and a few friends and a few people who you can actually rely on. And you keep asking yourself some questions. Will things work out? Will I make it? Did I make the right decision coming here? But even in that struggle, there were people who became part of my story. And I remember a lot of friends who rallied behind me around that time and offered out their living room so that I could stay there. And that really, really helped me as I figured life out. Experiencing homelessness is a journey that I can never express to anybody in simple words. And whenever people ask me or whenever I tell my story, I always say that this is a journey that everybody takes and it takes a turn for everyone. The reasons as to why people end up experiencing homelessness are vast. And sometimes we just see the symptoms, but we don't see what actually pushed them to that point in their lives. So for me, friends helped me navigate paperwork, the settlement process that felt very, very overwhelming. Organizations like the Mennonite Center for Newcomers, now known as the Newcomer Center, became a place of support and guidance during this time that was very, very tough in my life. And while all this was happening externally, internally, I was battling something else. I was battling an autoimmune disorder called myasthenia gravis. Now, myasthenia gravis is a neuromuscular autoimmune disease that affects the body in so many different ways. When you read about myasthenia gravis, for some people, it's called the snowflake disease because it's different from person to person. And this is something that you go through, and it's a silent battle that not a lot of people can see you day to day, but there are struggles that you go through that only you know. And these can weigh you down emotionally and mentally. And there were moments when my body felt so weak, moments that I felt exhausted. And sometimes fear actually crept in very, very quietly. But in those moments, my faith became my anchor. Two verses carried me through some of the darkest days of my life. Joshua 1:9 says that be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And then Psalms 23:4 Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Those verses reminded me that even when I felt alone, I was not abandoned. And when you combine health challenges, the uncertainty of life, loneliness, and survival all at once, it changes you. But it also teaches you a few things. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you gratitude. It teaches you that sometimes strength does not look loud or impressive. Sometimes strength is simply waking up every day and trying again. Looking back now, I realized something powerful. I did not survive because I had everything figured out. I survived because people showed compassion. And that is why I'm very, very compassionate. I'm very passionate about community, because in community, there is healing. In community, there are solutions. In community, there is resilience. In community, people thrive. You don't only survive, but you thrive in community. And that is why we need community. Because God placed good people in my path, I was able to see the light again. And even in the moments when I felt invisible, I was still being carried through. And today, when I see people looking at some of the things that I've achieved, I never forget the version of me who was trying to figure out where I would sleep. That version of me still keeps me grounded. My journey taught me that every person you meet is carrying a story. You may never get to know anything about it. And for everyone who is listening, I know that you have a story. I know that everybody is carrying a story. And sometimes it helps to be able to share that story with somebody that you trust, somebody who knows you. And sometimes ask them what their story is as well. Because everybody that you sit across on a bus or on a train, your co-workers, even your very good friends, everybody has a story. And sometimes that story shapes how they see life, their perspectives on different things, why they do things a certain way. And you know what? Because of what my story was, this is one of the reasons as to why Your Voice Chronicles matters so deeply to me. This is not just a platform that is just a podcast. It's a movement, a place where people can share stories and be vulnerable, because everyone goes through something. And sometimes what we go through becomes a blueprint for somebody else to keep going in their story. Because sometimes we do not know what else to do and how else to move on. But when we listen to somebody else's story and you can see that they actually made it out, you're like, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I need to keep moving. I need to keep pushing because somebody else did it and I know that I can do it. So if somebody's listening today and you're going through a difficult season, whether it's starting over, whether you're struggling with your finances or battling an illness or simply feeling lost, I want you to know this. Your current chapter is not your final chapter. Your story isn't over. It's still being written, and don't give up. Keep going, because sometimes the journey that nearly breaks you becomes the very story that inspires somebody to keep going and to keep living. So keep going, keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. And that is my story. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this journey. And thank you for being part of Your Voice Chronicles. And if today's story has resonated with you, please share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Please subscribe, leave a review, and help more voices be heard. Remember this, your voice has power, your story has purpose, and your journey may be the encouragement someone else needs to keep going in theirs. This has been Your Voice Chronicles, and I am Brian Walker. Until next time, stay resilient, stay intentional, and your story isn't over.